Okay, welcome to Panakal, a podcast for geeks, a show about good friends hanging out, talking about things we all love. That took me a long time to put to memory, by the way. So we got it done. Y'all know my co-host Andrew Sides. Our guest today is Ross Thompson, who, if you've done any industry show, you've probably seen Ross walking around, networking, talking to people, hanging out. You're really good with people, man. I was trying to remember earlier. My wife was asking me who the guest was, and I mentioned you, and I pulled up your Facebook profile real quick. She's met most of my friends either on a call or at a show or something, and she's like, I've never met this guy. And I was like, she's like, where did you meet him? And I was just like, where did I meet Ross? And I remember you and I met through Daryl Andrews.
There we go. Awesome. Okay.
At Gary Con. My first Gary Con, actually. I think it was 2021.
Yep.
And Daryl was like, meet me in the vendor hall. And I've never been to Gary Con. I don't know if Andrew, if you've ever been to Gary Con. It's a big gaming show, but it's a small vendor hall.
I like intimate.
I'm gonna
intimate.
It's in Gary, Indiana.
It's in Lake Geneva.
Lake Geneva.
What? Why is it called Gary Con then? Oh wait, Gary Gygax?
Gary Gygax is it's run by Luke, and it's pretty much for all the old schools, and a lot of guys that go to the show are like people that grew up playing D&D with Gary and the kids and the whole thing there and all of that. So
it's a cool experience. So Brian Colin and I were the ones who were there. I was there. This was our first time there. We networked the hell out of that show. We talked to everybody we could meet, right? And Brian was running. He's the guy who created Vast Grim. So he's got his own. He was running his own tape. He's been on the show a couple times, but he was running his own stuff. But at one point, Daryl was like, "Meet me in the vendor hall," and I'm going building the building, looking for. I'm used to conventions where the vendor halls are like 100 vendors, 200 vendors.
Gary Con is in the old Playboy Mansion setup campus in Lake Geneva.
And it's now like a resort.
It's our resort thing, right? And so they've got all this space where they've filled up, and it's got gaming areas and the convention center, vendor hall area there, and all of that. But when you walk into it, you pull the car up and you walk into it, and it opens up to the lobby of the resort, but it's the bar and then this big window that opens up to a pool, and you're like, "Yep, I see it."
That's when you're like, I can see how Playboy was here before I was,
So.
But initially I was like, because when you're driving into the place, you go over that giant gate, but the first building you see on the right is a water park. I've been to that water park a couple times with my kid, 2 kids now, but my first kid. Sure. So when I pulled in, I was like, it can't be in the water park, can it? And then you go around the corner a little bit more, and there's several buildings there, so it's in that building. And yeah, Daryl invited me to that vendor hall. I walked through it. Andrew, there's literally 40 vendors in there. It's like you would host it in your backyard. So it's kind of cool because you get to you're not overwhelmed. You're just like, I'm gonna get this stuff. But Ross was there running. You were probably there for Gloomhaven.
Steamforged. Yeah. I was there with Steamforged. So we were doing Epic Encounters stuff, and the Dark Souls RPG had come out that year. We were doing the new Epic Encounters thing. Animal Adventures was going on, so it was cool.
Good. Yeah, I basically that was my first. So I was there trying to play. So Brian had told me you could play all the RPGs, right? There's I mainly play D&D. So Brian's like, you can try all these different ones to test out, because I was trying to find ones for my RPG for Ancient Ones. So I'm like, I played Mothership, I played Lumen. I can't remember. There was a group of guys that were playing old school D&D, first edition D&D, but
or Chainmail. Oh yeah, they're playing Chainmail too, right? All kinds of stuff.
They were just I got scared of those dudes. I was like, I don't want to sit at this table. They're hardcore, right? And I'm just like, no, thank you. But it's an interesting show. I don't know if I kind of want to go back, but you got to be how often can you go to just have fun? Andrew's going to go to MegaCon this weekend, and he's going into walking the floor for the first time, versus working it.
Yeah, we have some family friends that are coming into town, and they're coming in for MegaCon, and they wanted us to come out. So we were like, all right, why not? Let's do it. We normally don't do it. Doesn't hurt that it doesn't help that the tables for this year, I believe someone told me that the early bird pricing was $405.
Yeah, so for the Fan Expo shows, like MegaCon's like their main one, right?
Yeah,
So,
Hmm.
and they've
it's
been
it's
pushing,
huge. Yeah,
really hard to get like more tabletop companies to go and stuff like that. So, it's been a big. I'm not surprised they had a raise on that, right? But
yeah. Well, I was telling a coworker the other day that is tabling a MegaCon this year, but I was telling him how when I first started doing it again back in like 2016, I want to say, the early bird pricing then was about 275, something like that. And it's just,
Wow, that's cheap.
yeah, year after year, they just been slowly raising it up. And like,
Well,
especially after COVID, they like, when COVID happened, they just went, nope, you're just gonna punch it up a bunch.
that's the same thing with Repop, right? Like I'm based out of Chicago, so I do C2E2. And when I first started doing vendor booths there, they were like $1,500, which is I get it, it's a vendor booth. But now it's last year was 1875, and this year I just spent 1975, and I have to pay the remainder tomorrow. Um, and it's like I usually make the money back, but there's always that dice roll where I'm like, is it worth it?
Yeah,
I don't
especially
know.
for like, I don't know, especially for like a 6 foot table, like $405 seems really, really steep.
well, it's I for me, like it's more of a well, what are you trying to get out of it, right? Like because I think like we've been having a similar talk with the SCA recently. Like we just raised our membership prices by like $5-10, right? Like for events and stuff like that in general. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, like this is totally cutting people out from attending and everything there. And it's like, well, what do you want to do with your time? Right? Like hobbies are a thing, work is a thing, and it's all of that. And it's tough because like everything is expensive now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so if you're spending that extra like, you know, $200 to do a booth, okay, well now you got to figure out some way to maybe you're going to add something new, like hey, I'm going to do some sketches, or I'm going to have some cool prints, or I'm going to add something else too, because that means the people that are coming are new too. I think we're having so many more new people come to these shows too
Yep.
that like I was just at LVO this past 2 weeks ago, right, for a thing, and it's a big tabletop wargaming convention, so it's not really a hangout show; it's just tournaments. And that
Okay.
convention is you got to pay to get in, and then you got to pay each tournament that you're playing in too. So
Oh
it's
wow.
it's not a cheap tabletop show, right? Uh,
So, well, yeah, go on.
yeah.
No,
So, but what I was saying was there was a couple tournaments that I was hanging out at, and they were like, "Hey, who here is this? Is this your first tabletop war game convention?" And like for a couple of the tournaments, like 80 people of like a 160-person tournament, like 80 people freaking raised their hands, right? And it's like we're now in this like after we're not like out of COVID now, we're like past it, right? People are like, "Cool, where do I want to spend my time? Where do I want to
Right.
do these things?" And at least that's good. So like the people that are now going to things again, which I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it doesn't discount that a $200 rise on a booth price is a lot.
Well, I mean, I so like on the other hand, also there's I was talking to some artists about this the other day. The booth costs have gone up, and a bunch of us are about to raise costs on some of our products too, right? Not a lot, just a little bit, but I feel like some people are gonna be miffed by that. Maybe your older customers, but also it's like the cost of producing some of the stuff that we have has gone up. Like my playmats cost money, right? They're heavy. I bring them to the shows. They sell well, but if I don't
Got two of
charge you,
them.
yeah, I gotta get rid of them, right? They gotta go. And I
Yeah,
was telling you, Jake said to say hi to you 'cause Jake's got his own. He's got a couple hobby shops. Jake has offered to buy some of these mats from me wholesale, right? But like, like I still have to move them, right? Like there's a cost there, and then my other thing that I sell at my booth is metal, and metal's not cheap, man. It's just a way. Like I also have to like. Here's the thing: I don't want to sit there explaining that to a customer, right? Like, hey, man, this
no,
booth costs more,
but
the
if
product costs more.
you but if you change the messaging on it, right? If you're getting my marketing brain now, right? But it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like a big thing is you got to go on that like PR communications front and being like, hey, we're raising prices because the cost of everything going up in the world is happening. But
yeah.
like, look, I offer this, I offer this, I offer that. These are really cool things that I get to bring. So now instead of like having just like the generic Magic the Gathering, here's the latest set thing, you're getting an artist that like has put time and effort into this whole thing. You're going to have a unique playmat out of the 180 people that you're playing with this weekend, right? And that's a really cool thing you're going to get to have for art prints, I just moved in the last like 3 months, and I was like, I think I'd have more art prints than I do freaking board games, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I got to figure out like what
Oh,
walls am I
dude,
going to
just
put stuff
get a
on.
portfolio.
Oh yeah.
I mean, maybe, right? Like I ended up ordering a bunch of these prints from Larry Elmore.
There's this guy that was he's at San Diego with us. He sells,
look at
this is
that.
all he sells at his booth: giant portfolios and sleeves. And then I bought this 13 by 19. I'm just gonna put all my extra prints in here. So I got a flat file full of artwork.
I
But
really
as you
got
can
him.
tell,
Like
I don't have any
in
wall
Woodstock.
space left.
Yeah, what's
See, look
like
at
so
this.
my walls are empty right now, right? And I'm just like,
That's
I'm
full.
gonna put stuff on them, and it's gonna be great, but it's tough. You
Well,
know?
it's tough because you're like, which one goes on the walls, which ones, but you still want to show off your work, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
what
I
I've been
was-
doing with these portfolio books is just whenever I have guests over, I just put one of those out on the coffee table.
Oh, there you go. I was just
Great
talking
idea.
about
And then I
this,
watch them like a hawk so they don't spill drinks on them.
Well, so okay, so talking about that, like I was just talking earlier today because I'm planning to put out a new print within the next week,
Hmm.
and it's a movie poster related one. So I was kind of like, oh, maybe I should try and offer something larger than the 12 by 18 that I usually do.
Poster
I'll
size,
still-
man.
I'll still offer it. Well, so that was the question. It's like, is it worth it to offer the 24 by 36, like actual full one sheet, or is there going to be? Because like the real talk, like it'll be about like $40 on my end to produce that because it's all print on demand kind of deal.
What if you just do a limited edition run and order in bulk?
See, I can't trust it because in the past when I've done that, I haven't had enough takers.
Because you're
Now,
not
yeah,
gonna make.
then your garage becomes a warehouse, right? And you don't want that.
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't want to, and I don't want to have it where it's like, hey, like I need say 10 people and like 3 people sign on, and then I have to later on email and be like, sorry, we didn't meet it, so I just got to cancel it. Don't worry about it.
Right. But print on demand
yes.
is just so expensive. That's why.
But considering I don't do a whole lot of print volume,
Sure.
it works right now since I don't have to carry the stock or anything like that. But yeah, no, I was debating between, and also like 24 by 36. You know, to Ross's point, like realistically, in my house, I have 2 places I could put a 24 by 36 print.
It's not a
One of them
lot.
is a wall. The other one's a sliding door that I have a 3M hook on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any large. That piece is probably the largest one, and that's just because it came in that frame. And I'm just like, all right, well, it's going up there.
I just got a large print. Well, I got 2 large prints. One's a horizontal, one's vertical, right? And they're all Larry Elmore prints. But one was like, I'm like, well, he put a whole like holiday special, and he's signing him and doing the whole thing, and it's like, well, how long are those going to be available, right?
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
kind of got to
That's
get
Larry
on
Elmore,
that.
man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's full, and I got the Might and Magic 6 cover. Like, and I grew up playing that freaking video game like all the time, and I was like, oh well, I gotta get it, right? So,
Right.
but it's like now I got to figure out where to freaking put it, right? So, because I didn't want to get a small one, I don't know. That's art's weird.
I mean, that's just you never think about where you're gonna hang it when you buy it. You just think about the fact that you want it.
Well, so like,
Right.
yeah, so I was talking about it, thinking like maybe I'll offer like a 16 by 24 thing. But then we got into a whole me and another friend got into a whole rabbit trail conversation about this because he used to be part of like a Mondo trading group on Facebook or something like that. And I guess like they also, like a lot of people in that have ideas of like, where do you store your prints? Because a lot of those people, I guess, tend to cycle out their prints on the walls. So, you know, they may have it like seasonal. Like, oh, I have like these prints up for like this part of the year, and then I'll switch it out with another set.
That's a lot of work, but okay.
For some people, like if they have a lot of prints, you know,
Sure.
you only have so many walls. So
Where do you
wall
store
space.
the ones that you take down?
So one of the things that someone suggested was, I'm going to make a flat file coffee table. And the way they had it was like, it was a flat file that was definitely a coffee table. It had a glass top on it, and the top of the flat file was open, so you could see in to see a print. Whatever print was in the flat file kind of thing.
Sure.
But yeah, my friend commented, he was like, yeah, some people are doing this, but like I feel this is like one beverage spill away from just a total disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
That's a dangerous,
Yeah.
dangerous thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who does. He got like poster. What do you call them? Like poster frames and double sided them. So there's a print on.
Oh, really? So he'll
and he
just flip it around?
Flips it, yeah. Which at first I was like, that's just fucking weird. But then later I was like, that's actually not that bad because he's a little bit like your friend. He's like, oh, it's the season, like Halloween. Most of the stuff he has is Halloween. So when Halloween comes, all those just flip, and it's all like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, and so like
Huh.
I've got some friends that I go to this every Halloween. That's what sparked the idea. Was like they have this murder mystery they always make. He's a game designer, so every year he designs like a whole intense murder mystery thing. Last year was Barbie. The year before that was like Batman. He's done a lot of really
That's
cool
cool.
stuff, right? Oh, it's awesome. And like their bathroom right now is all Haunted Mansion, right? And it's all just like these kind of things are there. But like whenever you go over there, it's like, oh, it's spring, so all the art prints are horror themed, but they're this, right? Oh, it's the fall. There's bats everywhere in the house, but now now it's all horror posters, right? And stuff like that. So it's like they definitely rotate out what they've got going on,
I would
which
love
I
to do
feel
stuff like that.
well, it's interesting because like I think like, even our parents grew up doing that, right? Oh, it's this thing. We got to bring out the pumpkins, or we got to bring out
Yeah.
this. But now with all the nerd pop culture is so normalized now, right?
Yeah.
That like if people were to come over and they're like, oh, cool, hey, this is great. I love your mashup wall, right? It's got the Avengers, but now they're all Halloweened up. Like I've got a little Bulbasaur little toy here. It's got a little
Nice.
pumpkin thing on it, right? And it's just like that stuff is hot right now, right? Like, and it's silly how much that is, but it's like, well, it's a brand I love, and now it's seasonal, which is even better, So, yeah, I mean, it's same time you still got to store it somewhere in the off season, right? So,
I mean, I literally went to storage before I got on this call with you guys. All my stuff's in a 10 by 15 space, and I'm sitting on a lot of playmats right now, so it's full. And yeah, and the other part of it is also all the rest of the stuff that's not sitting behind
are
me.
you part of Gamma?
I was a member. I was part of Gamma before, because I do Origins, and
Right.
then my membership. I forgot to renew my membership last year, and
Sure.
I probably have to renew it this year, because last year when I went to do it, I basically, do you know Morris from Equilibrium? Yep. So Morris was kind enough to let me get in on his booth space. So like he's got his space and I'm behind him this year. But I'm going to sign up for Gamma this year when I'm at Origins, because I did the base membership just so I can keep doing Origins. But Morris has been telling me to just join up to be like a Gamma member.
You should.
So, okay.
And why I bring that up
Yeah.
is because you could access to the retailer list as part of the membership directory.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
that now you've got a newsletter thing where you can be like, hey, do you really want cool playmats? Hey, you do, like every
That's not
quarter
a
you
bad
can just
idea.
do a little blast out and do a thing and do all that. So
Now, what is Gamma?
So Gamma is the trade organization for the hobby tabletop game industry. It's called it's the Game Manufacturers Association. They've been around since dinosaurs ruled the earth. But they also run Origins, and they run the Gamma Expo, which is like one of the best trade shows. So
yeah, I need to do that. I'll admit, I was hard pressed to join as a full member, because in 2020, technically I was a guest of honor, and then COVID happened. So then 2021, they did give me my table, they did pay for my hotel room and stuff, but nobody knew I was there. Nobody knew I was the guest of honor. They didn't do half the stuff on in our agreement. So I was just kind of like, I was a little soured by that.
They're not perfect, right? I've been a
Right.
part of Gamma for like 15 years, and the evolution of it all is very interesting. But it's got a good tool base, right? And if you can use that to your thing, there's a Facebook group that's really good. The Gamma Expo is really good, and then the membership directory is really good, right? So it's like, if you
let's
want
just sign up for the full membership and you get access to all that. I'll make a note of it.
The smaller one too is, but don't quote me on that. I know we're recording, but I think just go check that out. But I think it's great. Like, if you want to sell to retailers, if you want to meet manufacturers for board games, if you want to meet media, and then you just want to have contact with publishers, like if you want to hit it, like I work as an artist and I want to hit up.
He just like named all the things I need to do for my company.
Right.
I really should just pay you and just be like, go get it.
Well, really, you just have me on your podcast and ask me a couple questions and do the same thing. So it's okay.
Well, this is helpful for other people too. So, but yeah, I never really thought about. I didn't realize that because in my head, I always thought being a membership is just so I can get my foot up the charts for getting into these shows earlier. I didn't realize that you have access to all these other things,
Oh
which is
yeah.
kind of cool to know.
I mean, that's the cool thing. Like, I'll be at Gamma Expo in March, right? And we're going to do a presentation for work stuff and everything there. But I'm going to run
Sure.
a marketing panel too and
I
do all
don't think I'll
those
make
things.
it
But it's
to
like,
that. Next year I'll try.
yeah. But what's really nice is like it's the networking part, right? Like it's probably the most traditional convention that we have in the industry, right? It's not a
Really?
consumer show. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Like essentially, you're
Is
you're
that in
hanging out.
Ohio?
So it used to be in Reno. It used to
Oh
be in
yes.
Vegas. This year it's in Louisville.
Louisville.
So as a West Coaster, I don't like that because now I actually have to like book a flight and do a thing. I used to just like for Reno, I could just hop on a Southwest, be there in 40 minutes, call it a day.
Yeah.
Right. When it was in Vegas, I used to go to March Madness and then go to
Yeah.
Gamma. Like that was
It's
great.
Vegas
But
too, right? So you can at least have some
and
fun.
it's Vegas. But for Louisville, I got like it's at a resort, so it's going to be weird this year because like it'll have that first year
Yeah.
con energy. So like no one's really going to know like which bar are we all hanging out in, that kind of stuff there. But what's cool is it's a meeting and network show, right? So like you go there, you can do panels in the morning, and then the exhibitor hall is open for a couple days, but only for like half a day. So like
Okay.
11 to 3 kind of thing, right?
All right.
And then once that's done, then there's game night each night. You can do all that that's where the retailers get to play the publisher games and do stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then it's really just hang out at the bar. And while it's like, yes, people are drinking at the bar, it's not like a let's get schwasty show. Like it's definitely like I am here representing my company. Oh my gosh, there's that guy. There's a lot of business happens at Gamma.
Okay.
More so than I would say at Gen Con.
I will have to look into that because Gen Con is my top show right now. Like,
Yeah, it's
Great.
like your big one.
it's my big one. It's like I did a lot of my networking there. I do really well with my booth there. Did we have was there a party at Gen Con this year?
Yeah, the Hunters area, they had their own little hangout thing going on and all that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
I was at the one
where
with
where Gamma's different is it's on you to do the focused marketing or for yourself,
okay.
right? Like because you're even with your booth, like if you were to do a booth next year, which I wouldn't recommend as an artist.
Sure.
But if you were to go, like you're only going to be really hitting up the retailers that are walking around and doing all of that. But if you were to go, I think your target there would be like, cool, I need to work with publishers. So I'm going to take a look at Paizo, Kobold, Cubicle 7, like all those freaking RPG companies that are going to be there. And then also all those board game companies that are going to be there. And you're going to be like, yo, hey, you can just email them before and be like, hey, do you want to meet and do a thing? But also maybe you don't even go to the show. Maybe you just use the membership directory, email out and be like, hey, here's my stuff. Here's what I do. You want to do cool
it's
stuff.
not a bad idea.
That's that way, instead of like, I get hit up all the time. People are like, oh my gosh, Ross, I want to hit up this company, do this thing. What should I do? And really it's like, well, if you're in the industry, join Gamma because then like sure, it costs like, I think $100 for the first year. Then I think it's like 300 afterwards. I don't quote me on that. Right.
No, that's fine. I'll look up the costs.
But the thing is, it's like, if you want to get the stuff there, that's where it is. And it's weird, not in a weird way, but it's kind of like, it's because we have our Facebook online communities and our Twitter online communities and everything else there. Everyone's like, oh, the industry is so spread out and all these things. Well, it's like, well, sure, like if you're making little indie RPG books and like doing a thing and just putting it on IO or drive through, that's different than like, I want to go meet a manufacturer so I can actually get my book printed and do this thing. Like Kickstarter is there. I want to meet with Kickstarter so I can talk about how to get a product we love and how to do a whole thing. Like that's where it's at. And I feel like while COVID was it was like a big reset for a lot of stuff, right? And we all had to like do all this work, and it was like a weird normalizer on this, like, okay, now everybody has to kind of do the work. And a lot of people were able to get recognition because of their online work and everything there. But now we're at the point where it's like the people that wanted to go back are back now, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got to do the extra work to network and communicate and make all that happen. Like it's what D&D 50 this year, right? So it's like the industry is going to move on, even if we are firing 1 million people every month, right? Like it's just like, which is awful, and that's the whole thing too. But like it's like, but if you want to stay networking, communicated, like there's places you can go do that. It's not just, well, I really hope somebody sees my post online, right? So
which is basically what we're doing right now. Like the shows help, but my goal has always been I kind of want to do less shows and just do more marketing and move the thing. Like that sounds
Well,
like
I
something I
mean,
should
Vox had a big article that came out today, that talked about how artists and a lot of indie creators have to be full on like hype machines constantly,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
And it's exhausting. And like
it is
even as a marketing
incredibly.
person that has like a general brand I try to keep, it's like that, I can't just post up random stuff. I've got to maintain a thing and have some consistency and do some of these things. And it's like we're one off from like the Matrix to Player One kind of stuff, right? Let's just VR
Yeah.
into the machine. So
I mean, I
weird.
can't even like I used to post like on Instagram. I used to post art, but then I used to also post like life events, like whatever's happening and all that. And then I realized you can't do that.
Almost daily, I think.
Yeah, but people don't want to people don't want to be like on Instagram. They just want to see my art. They want to know when the next book's coming out.
I think there's ways to do it while still being genuine, right?
Sure.
Like, and if like you've gone on some cool trips, you're doing some cool thing with your kids, and you do all of that. Like, there's ways to do it, but like we're not posting up lyrics, from Blink-182 like in the 2000s on Facebook anymore, right? So, you got to figure out what that is.
In the 80s, man.
Yeah.
So I did have some questions for you. Nothing crazy, but obviously it sounds like you were always into tabletop gaming.
So if we want to go like back in the day, it's funny because like I literally pulled out my high school Warhammer army
Nice.
like yesterday. So it's like, like here's like my own little my little Grimgor Ironhide and all these things because the old world's getting anyway. But so I started playing my
here, what was the first RPG you played? Warhammer?
D&D. Like I've got
D&D,
I've got my core group of gaming friends, like where we all played Warhammer, D&D, Paranoia, all that stuff and everything there. I've got really good memories of my buddy John, and we were over at his house playing D&D for the first time, and his older brothers were converting their second edition characters to third edition. Okay. And we were playing Magic with all the Magic cards out of their shoebox. And I look back on that now and I'm like, wow, what a core memory that is. And I'm so glad I have that, because like that's like a shift in time, right? And they had this whole dragon they had built that they had captured and turned into this casino, but then it could fly and dump rats into dungeons and things. But they had it all on graph paper. And of course, one of them now is like a major engineer, right? And it's like, well, who would have called that if they were doing that back in high school, right? So, but yeah, I've kind of always been a gamer, but I didn't think I was going to work in games. What ended up happening was we were all playing War Machine back in like 2005, 2006. And a bunch of my core gaming group buddies, they ended up going to school in Irvine. And we were all college. I'm in San Diego, right? So it's like 45 minutes, hour and a half is like far enough away. You're like, okay, cool. I want to go there on the weekend, but like I need a reason to go up there, kind of thing. So I ended up becoming a press ganger for Privateer Press, which was like their volunteer team back in the day where you could run tournaments and do leagues and all that kind of stuff. And so I ended up running a bunch of tournaments around Southern California, where essentially like I get all my buddies and we'd go up there and see my friends, and then play a tournament during the day, and then go hang out in their dorm at night and do all that, which was super fun. And that was kind of like my first real step into figuring out, I'm a part of a volunteer team that works for a company that does a miniatures game. So then I ended up going to a convention called TempleCon, which was in Rhode Island, and it was a it's not a thing anymore, but it was a steampunk LARP and tabletop game convention. And so it was in February, which was a great time to be in Rhode Island. No. Right? Yeah. Gotta love all that blizzard snow stuff, right? My first time that I went, I wore shorts and flip flops, which is still remembered to this day by some people,
San Diego boy.
I had never gone to a con that wasn't Comic-Con before, right? So like I didn't think to prep to, I'm like, I'm gonna land at the airport and then go to the hotel, like whatever, right? Stupid, a blizzard just happened, So, but so I ended up going there and meeting all the other people that were all doing wargaming and running events and doing things. And I came back from that and I was like, I can run a convention. So then I ended up putting together a convention that I ended up running for 10 years. But I started that when I was like 19, called Kingdom Con. And and all these people helped out. It was a big community effort, but we used to run events and do everything like that.
Was that in
And then
San Diego?
essentially down in San Diego, yeah.
Hmm.
And so essentially that first year, a couple companies came to that too, because I had met them through other things and stuff like that. And I ended up getting offered a job at Privateer Press pretty much like a year later. And that was kind of my first like real entry
Yeah.
into the industry, which was just being a volunteer running stuff. I ended up working at their booth for years as like a volunteer, like just running demos and things. But you kind of learn the rhythm of like, okay, cool, I'm volunteering for these guys. I'm getting paid in store credit. But I learned like how a booth setup goes, how to run a demo, how to do a sales thing, how to get all that going on, which now on the other side of it, I'm like, man, I can't believe all that free labor they got out of us for years, right? Like, we should have.
I mean, that's how I learned too, right? I worked other artist booths for volunteer service, and I learned how to. Whenever people are like, "Oh, how do you know so much about this and that?" And this and that, I'm like, I learned from working multiple booths, man.
Yeah, just like do it.
It's just the way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays you want to try to pay your assistants, obviously.
You actually you have to. You're required by law to do that.
Okay,
right?
I didn't know that part.
That's a whole. It's a whole. But yeah,
I pay my assistants in case anyone's wondering. So.
Well, like there's one thing to like have your friends come work your booth and do all that where you're going to buy dinner and cover their hotel room. There's one thing to like fly people out and then do that. Like those are folk you've got to pay because company, right? But yeah, so like from there, I ended up working at a handful of different companies. After I left Privateer Press, I ended up working at Cool Money or Not before they were CMON. And at that point,
I remember when they were just minis.
So that's when I was there.
Okay.
So, and then I ended up working for them when it was a website when you would post up your miniatures and you'd vote on if they were hot or not, right?
Yeah.
And so while I was working there, we had Dark Age, we had Super Dungeon Explorer, we had this guy, Adam Poots. He was hanging out every now and then and just doing these one-off little Kingdom Death miniatures. Doing his thing. But they were just like little one-off SKUs. There was no massive game yet. Yeah, and so then we ended up running into this guy at the first PAX East that had just finished running a Kickstarter that raised $35,000, which was like, whoa, a big deal. Like 15 years ago, right? So we ended up talking to him about how that all worked. We got hooked up with Kickstarter, and then we ended up running this thing called Zombicide, a little bit later that year. So I ran that campaign on the marketing side of things, right? And then that ended up being this like what it was, right? Cool. So then I ended up running a lot of those like OG CMON campaigns for like Rivet Wars and Sedition Wars and Relic Knights and stuff like that. So yeah.
Did you work on City of Gateway?
No.
Sean Murray?
No.
He'll be next to me in San Diego this year. He wasn't there last year. So. I've got the TMNT Zombicide stuff. I love it.
Yeah, so that ended up getting lined up when I was at IDW.
Okay.
Because a buddy of mine and I had both used to work at CMON, and then we were both at IDW for a while. And then one of our guys was like, it'd be cool to use this TMNT license more. And we're like, well, we know these guys. We can just call up, and they're already doing character packs for these things. And so
snagged those at San Diego that year. Gen Con, I think I got them at Gen Cons. They were cheaper. San Diego was expensive. But for some reason, they were at Gen Con.
They had launched at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And the website had gone up too that weekend, and it crashed the website.
They're great sculpts.
They're amazing. I've got them over on the shelf. Oh, yeah.
How come you guys didn't do a Casey Jones?
Licensing is very interesting when it comes to things like that, man.
This, I have this on my desk. This took me almost 6 years to. I refuse to pay more than $10 to $12 for a Funko Pop. By the way,
I agree.
And this guy is so rare. He's like $50 on eBay. I'm like, I'm not spending.
Yeah, but it's not a Captain Cupkirk.
Oh, get the fuck out of here! It's funny though. Yeah, I mean, I love that Zombicide set. And I was patiently waiting for the rest of the line, and I was just like, well, I guess that's not happening. But I was happy that I got what I got. I think Zombicide's a fun game. I think CMON's a cool company. That's cool that you work for them. And I didn't, I think by the time, literally like a year after I met you, you were already working with Price in them.
The last 2 years I've done freelance work, right? So I would get hired at different companies on a contract basis. and come in and be like, hey, we need like this area of our marketing fixed, or we need to run this campaign and do this thing and that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
while it's like it was that maybe eventually full time would happen with the full thing, and it's just how. So I ended up doing a couple different gigs, whereas about a year and a half at a couple different companies, right? And
Yeah.
doing that, so everyone's like, "Oh, Ross, you jump around a lot," and I'm like, "Hey, gig economy, man, that's how that freaking works." Like, just
Like I'm a contractor. This is what contractors do,
yeah,
literally. But
yeah.
yeah, like
So
I met. That's the year I was at Origins as a guest of honor is where I met Price was and Isaac were like a kind of like on an angle from me.
right,
And I've never met these guys before in my life, but Price walks over and just loves my work, and he's talking to me, and
oh,
he's
yeah,
like, "Would you want to do a trade?" And I was just like, at this point, my friends and I already own a copy of Gloomhaven, right? I'm like, I already own this. In my friends group here, we're like, one of us owns the game. We don't need multiple copies of the game, especially Gloomhaven, because it's the size of a small baby. Like, I'm just like, I'm good. And he said, no, I'll tell you what, I'll get you Frosthaven. And I was just like, I'm not going to play that game until I'm like 50 at this point, because it's taking forever to play Gloomhaven. But then he ended up leaving a copy of Gloomhaven at my booth. I traded him a bunch of stuff for it because I felt bad. And then literally a couple months later, after your Kickstarter ended, he sent me Frosthaven, which was really cool, by the way. And I gave him some sketchbooks and playmats and stuff. So it's not like I got anything for free, really. But Price and I became really good friends after that. And he's a super chill dude. He invites me to those.
Price is a really good dude. I loved working for them.
They're like the
they reached
nicest
out.
guys.
Oh yeah, they reached out and they're like, "Hey, we want to run this campaign," and I'm like, "Okay, like what kind of campaign?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a 4 products in one on as the flagship for the backer kit thing and everything. There, we want to have live streams and this and that." And it's like, and in my mind, I was like, I just left Steamforge, and I'm like, I'm not running another crowdfunding campaign again. I'm totally
Right.
swearing it off. And they're like, "Hey, you want to run one of the biggest ones ever?" And it's just like,
Gloomhaven killed
yeah,
it.
yeah, let's go, right? So, which like, we raised like 5K or 5 mil on the front end, and of course did really well on the back end too, and everything there. And like work wise, we did 4 products in that campaign. It was Gloomhaven Second Edition. We did the miniatures, the full miniatures line, which replaced every cardboard standee for Gloomhaven
Yeah.
across as the brand.
And those miniatures are key, man. I love those things.
Oh, they're great. And then there's the RPG which is coming out, and then we announced another game with the solo version halfway through, right? And then we did 30 days of streaming. We did like 6 hours a day streaming with Gloomhaven TV, and then we did a
Holy
couple other.
crap.
And then we did like yeah. I took Isaac's Twitch channel from like 15 followers to partner by the end of it, right? So Ruel Galviola ran all this stuff on the producer end, which was super great. And then we did 3 conventions, and we lined up a Twitch, a Switch Nintendo Direct announcement to happen for the video game going to consoles, all during that too.
My friends and I have been looking at the video game because when COVID hit, like we definitely couldn't play the game, and then
right.
we played our first. We rebooted. We started playing last week again after so long. Basically, we set it up, started playing. I literally sent photos to Price and me like, I don't fucking care. This is gonna go live, but I was fucking high playing Gloomhaven, and he was like, "You're running a Spellweaver, hi," and I'm just like, "Let's see how this goes." And I made it through that whole thing without. I took 1 point of damage the whole time, and I was just like,
That's very impressive.
Okay,
that's very impressive.
And my friends were like, "You played all your cards right. You did really well. We finished that part of the mission." And then we were all like, I was amazed none of us died. I was like, okay, that was cool. It was fun. But I was like, well, now we have 30 adventures to do still. Like,
oh yeah,
it's a fun game. It's just I don't know how people are. Whenever I meet people who are like, we're on it, we're playing it for the second time. I'm like, how much free time do you have?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because like having worked with that community for a while, it's people that play that game are in, right?
Yeah.
Like they're in,
Yeah.
and they want to be a part of it. And I think Gloomhaven really speaks to that like lifestyle board gamer in a very interesting way, right? Like it's because when you're playing it, you're playing a D&D game, a D&D campaign, but like over the course of like it's like 120 missions, and
Something
each
like
mission
that.
can be anywhere between like 90 minutes to 2 hours, right? And you're gonna retire like 2 or 3 characters, so you're gonna end up playing like 4 or 5 characters through this whole thing, doing all of that. You're gonna get attached to them. It goes on, and so it's Isaac but there's part of it too where it's like Isaac and his team made a really cool thing, and you're a part of this. Like, oh man, this one guy did all this game design and did all this stuff, and his team did these things there and all of that, and people are in. And then Frosthaven hit during a time when quarantine was like, oh man, like, what are we gonna do? And it was just perfect, how that all went down. And then it's neat now because like for Gloomhaven 2.0, Gloomhaven itself hasn't been in stock for a while. So when 2.0 hits, you're gonna get all these people that are like, oh, I've played the video game, or I've heard about how cool it is, or I've already played it once before. I want to see what they've updated and remastered and done all those things. And it's going to be great. Like I think the problem with crowdfunding campaigns is everyone's like, they pick apart every single little thing you could possibly do wrong. Oh, I would have done it way better, whatever, which is like, great, man. Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Because you want to be like, why didn't you design it then? But yeah, it's better just be like, cool, dude. Thanks.
Right. And then, but like once it comes out, people are going to play it. It's going to be cool. Like, and I think what's funny about marketing those games is you can't talk about like 80% of it because the spoiler culture around Gloomhaven and Frosthaven is so heavy that you only talk about like the 6 starting characters. That's it. But there's like 20 characters in that whole thing that all have cool mechanics and rules and miniatures and things that you're just like, well, I don't get to show off the cool.
I haven't even seen the other miniatures yet.
Or this thing that has this cool mechanic because like you can't. And with Frosthaven, there was a whole like city building aspect to it and seasons that happen, and there's cool things there that we just can't talk about because the hardcores, which are like a majority of the community, have a very strict set of like shields and spoilers and all this stuff. And so I think Gloomhaven lucks out that it's able to just go, it's Gloomhaven. And then people go, oh, great, cool. I know what you're talking about. Even if you don't, you're like, oh, it's Gloomhaven. It's the juggernaut of legacy style games. It's like we were at Comic-Con last year, having just finished the campaign, because the campaign ended Wednesday at 6:30 of preview night, as we were doing preview night, right? So like, oh yeah, I woke up. So, like I woke up on that Thursday of Comic-Con, and my body like elevated, and it was like The Exorcist. Like I felt a ghost leaving me, which was crazy to like physically feel stress leave your body. What crazy! I'd never had that happen before, but it was like, well, I'd been working 12-hour days for like 3 months straight. So like, it makes sense. And then I had to go to do all the Comic-Con stuff, so I had to like, cool, I'm running a panel in an hour. Let's go.
I see you walking around in there.
Oh yeah, but it was a trip because like we're the booth placement. I was like, well, I have no idea how Gloomhaven's going to do at Comic-Con. Let's find out, right? And there were so many people that came by that were like, I've seen this brand before, but I don't know what it is, right? And so all we had to, but they wanted to know what it was, right? And it's like because of the normalization of tabletop games and of D&D and of these things, like people see Gloomhaven and they're not immediately like, oh, I don't know what that is. They're like, oh, people really enjoy this. I know what this brand name is. I have no idea what it actually is. But so they walked up and like, there's Jaws of the Lion, which was like the first game at Target to like sell out in the freaking weekend.
How hard is it to teach a game like that in a convention?
So it's neat, right? Because I think there's an art to teaching a game at a show where you really, there's like 3 levels of demos that you're going to go on, right? One is the immediate elevator pitch. Like they've walked by and you're like, hey, I have Gloomhaven. And they go, cool, what is it? And you've got to essentially kind of body language gauge. Do I tell them the quick elevator pitch and they can decide if they want to hang out? Or do I have you enough where I can do like a 2-minute, hey, here's what it is, everything there. Right. And then once they're in, then your table should at like a pop culture con, your table is not a sit down table. It's going to be a stand up like bar level thing. You're going to run them through 1 or 2 rounds, right? Like turns, like not full rounds, like enough for like, hey, here's how the card mechanic works. Here's how the monster AI works. Here's the first part of the story. You enter the room. There's cultists in the corner, and there's a whole. Can you get enough of that? And then you get to do 1 or cool cinematic things. You're like, oh man, you're gonna shoot the spell. It's gonna knock this guy into a trap. That trap's gonna blow up, and then your demolisher here is gonna punch the wall, and that's gonna blow up. There's a treasure chest. Woo, cool. And they're like, that's great. And then you've got to be able to gauge and be like, hey, this game is now this what we're playing here is about 45 minutes or 90 minutes. So if you
You want to
buy
stick
Jaws,
around. Yeah.
well, so not even stick around, this is what it's going to be like when you play it at home,
Right.
right?
Oh,
Because you're not going to want to do that. The most you're ever going to want to demo is 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
oh,
That's
okay.
it. You want them to come in and go, cool. And that's really only if you think they're into it. The minute they glaze over and they're already looking around, I think the one thing that not enough people realize is you can always end a demo. I think
Right.
people always think that, like, oh, it started, I've got to get through it so they can buy the thing. And it's like, if they've already tuned out, all you got to do is go, hey, this is a cool look at the game. This is great. There's more to share, but like, either you can check it out or they don't. And then if they hang out in the booth, then you go, great, here's our intro product, which whatever that is, right? Here's the thing, here's that. With Gloomhaven at Lexout, you've got Jaws of the Lion. It's $50, but it's a hefty game. It feels heavy. It's got about 25 scenarios you're going to play through. It's got 4 cool characters. It's got the book. And you're like, you know what? This is pretty fun. Like, I'm in, right? And there's a lot of people that like that bite-sized thing. And then what's funny for Gloomhaven is then you get to go, cool. So then we have Frosthaven and Gloomhaven. It's 120 scenarios of this.
Yeah.
With 18 characters each. And you may as well just take a baby shower photo with the box once you get it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in your life.
Dude, I feel like Frosthaven weighs way more than Gloomhaven.
It does actually by 12 pounds.
That's about right. Wow. Dude, it's a heavy box, Andrew. It's heavy.
No, it's about 34 pounds.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't get Jaws of the Lion first. I got Gloomhaven first. My friends, we all chipped in and bought it, right? It's probably the most expensive board game we've ever bought, but we knew what we were getting into when we purchased
my
it.
daughter weighs about that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine just carrying that around when you're trying to get to game night,
Oh,
but like Jaws of the Lion, is that what it's called? Jaws of the Lion?
Yep.
That's another one Price sent me. He was like, you should start with this. But I'm like, I'm already in Gloomhaven, man. So I gave that to my cousins and I said, give this a whirl.
It's always a good gift. If somebody's into board games and you get in Jaws of the Lion, like
I said, if you like this, we can move into Gloomhaven. You can give me that back. If you like it enough to keep it, keep it.
So one question I have then is, like, that 15-minute demo that's you do during the convention, is that essentially the same as like a vertical slice you would have for like a video game? Because like most of those aren't the actual game. It's more like, hey, the developers packed as much as they could into this tiny thing so you could see point A to point B what this looks like. And if you can gauge at it from there.
Essentially, right? Like there's like with a miniatures game, you can definitely craft and script that out, right? Like, hey, we're going to start here and do these things and battle that out. You're going to play this card, have your cinematic rise, and then the game's done. But with board games, you want to have enough where they get the flavor of the hook, right? And it's like, hey, here's the game. We're moving the pieces around. This is really great. You play the cards, but then this happens, and you're like, and this is the beef of what. This is why people enjoy this kind of thing, right? And then with a game like Gloomhaven, you go, and then when you would finish the scenario, then you're going to level up your character. You're going to do this thing. You're going to roll on this table, and then you get some bonus items you can spend in the store, and then you start the next one. And that kind of stuff that's where that legacy kind of style stuff kind of plays into it. But the other kicker for it is it's really good for people that want to play D&D that don't want to have a DM. Right?
Yeah.
Because the story takes you through it. And there's a lot of, I think that's the biggest hurdle with RPGs is you got to find a DM,
Well, it's the DM. And then like, I realized that my friends that like Gloomhaven and don't seem to like D&D as much is they don't want to make characters. They don't want to like figure out what the spells they cast or weapons they carry are. They're like, here's this character. This character does this. I like what this character does. I'll just play this character. It's like pre-built.
Right.
Just enjoy it.
Which is totally fine too. But like if I was to be giving a D&D demo at a con, right? Like I wouldn't run it more than 15, 30 minutes anyway either, right? I go, here's your pre-made. Hey, and here's a little cheat card. You're a sorcerer. You can do these 3 things. Here's a cool thing you can do. You're a fighter. You're this. And then you start out in a dungeon. It's why most D&D starter adventures throw you in a dungeon, and at the end of it, you fight a dragon, right? And that way, look at you're in a dungeon and you fight a dragon.
It's fucking Lost Mines, right? You're
right.
You're there. There's a green dragon. You're good to go. Done. So,
you fight some kobolds, you do a thing, the dragon runs off. Oh, cool. In your next adventure, now you got to go track the dragon down, right? So, but it's interesting because like 5,000 board games come out a year, right? And like 10 games get announced on Kickstarter every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then we're in a time right now where we could make a game on this podcast, right? Like we could get game design no problem, get art no problem. With 4 phone calls, we can get a manufacturer, logistics, distribution, get it all figured out, right? And then with enough work and time more than that, put it up on Kickstarter with a little bit of marketing, do a thing, see where it goes. And there we go, right? And I think when you look at a lot of these stories of these like success stories with what Stonemaier Games has done and Dice Throne has done, where it's,
Dice Throne.
and even Kingdom Death, where they're like, oh my gosh, like a couple folk got together, did a thing and did all that, which is great. But I think what a lot of people don't think about, and here's where this kind of is an interesting bit, is cool. Now that you've ran your Kickstarter and done your game, now what do you want to do? Do you want to run a game company? Do you want to do all that? Or do you just want to, get your stuff?
Your game, and now you're done. The deal,
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what's your bit? Like, there's a guy, Tate Wu, in Southern California. I love Tate. His art's amazing. He does a lot of like watercolor illustrations and things like that. And he is a grinder in a really cool way. And if we know that it's only love when I say this, right? But it's like, he's a guy that goes, my profession is making board games. And his Kickstarters that he runs, they're not multi-million-dollar Kickstarters, but they're
Right.
very successful for what he's doing. And he's got
Sure.
a very dedicated audience and a community that loves buying the games he makes. Promenade, Fork, a couple other ones that are just like, they're super fun, they're super cute, and he sells enough where the campaign was made. Great, cool, printed. He's not overprinting a whole bunch where his garage becomes a warehouse, and then he just works on the next game and has it come out. And I'm like, but that's a kind of a cool jam. Like he's figured out that rhythm. Like, sure, he's
Right.
still a slave to the system where he has to keep doing that, but he's not funding the next Kickstarter with his previous Kickstarter money. He's got that down, which I think is kind of nice.
Yeah,
That
that's
sounds cool too.
that reminds me of like I remember years ago I listened to a GDC talk about I think the guy's company's name was Spider Games or something like that, but it was a very similar process. Like his company had been in business for about 30 years at that point, since like Commodore era,
Sure.
and and he was like, yeah, we don't go crazy. Like graphics are pretty budget. It's no frills, but like we have our the 100 true fans, and they will absolutely always pay for our stuff. And we occasionally get some other people in, but otherwise, like we have our niche and our very very tiny customer base, but they're enough to support us, and
Right.
we've been able to support ourselves for like 30 years doing this way. And it's also like he keeps his costs like trim. I think it's like him, his wife, and like they occasionally freelance like
Sure.
an artist or whatever, kind of deal. But yeah, no, it's interesting. That's like there's someone like that in the board game era as well.
Oh, I mean, there's some like that in tabletop too. If you go look up Metal King Studio, right? Like Sean Sutter, he's got a game called Relic Blade, and then he's done Sludge and a couple other ones too. But like he's done all the game design, all the sculpting, all the art layout, all that stuff there, and he's got some really slick miniatures games. And you're just like, it's cool, and like all you really need is a couple of the YouTubers to, oh my gosh, look at this cool wizard, or look at this cool thing, or this is a really cool game mechanic and this hook, and you're like, great. And like for games right now, with the amount of 3D printing coming out and the amount of like really cool terrain and stuff like that, like I think it's more important that you're playing things you like and you're
Yep.
playing with people that you like more than just consuming what's new.
Yeah.
I say that as I buy a lot of, the Deck of Many Things and the new Warhammer book and all that, but it's still fun because like there's so many things that are out now that you can kind of like play what you want and do your thing there. Like I've got some friends of mine that will 3D print, some smaller versions of games and play that way, which is really fun too. I'm really big into 15 millimeter games right now, and where it's not like Napoleonics, but like, oh, let's do a smaller version of this game we like and just play with centimeters instead of inches.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I've been sticking to primarily D&D with my friends, but my core group of
have you
friends
played
here.
small D&D though?
What's small D&D?
So instead of playing with a 28 to 35 millimeter miniature, instead of playing with a giant board, we're gonna get down to like 15 mil. Right? Because you could literally have a full dungeon or
Yeah,
a
yeah.
full city with 15 mil stuff, and then it packs up really easy. You can do a whole thing. Like
I like
we were,
that idea. I like
That
that
sounds like
idea.
what. So Brian Colin has for Bass Cream. He's got cassettes, and there's a little
yeah,
adventure in the cassette, basically. I don't
right,
think he has mini sculpts for it yet, though. That's not a bad idea.
yeah,
It-
it's good. Yeah,
yeah. No,
You
Alan, are you primarily RPG, or because you play board games as well? Like
I
I
so the
mostly.
board game idea came into effect because I started getting into tabletop gaming around 2017 2018. I used to play here and there with my cousins and stuff, but I never
Mm.
go serious. And then I did my first Gen Con, I think it was 2017. And when I walked the floor, I was like, what the hell? What is happening here? Like just blown away by everything. And then my
oh,
first year
Gen
at
Con's
Gen
crazy.
Con, what's that?
Gen Con's crazy, man.
Like your mind is
It's
just overloaded with what you're seeing, right? Information overload.
yeah,
But then I think it was I want to say 2018 or 2017 or 2018 was my first year at Gen Con, and my first time tabling there in the art show. A bunch of publishers came by my booth to look at my work because they liked my stuff. But then what I didn't realize they do is art trades. Like you can literally trade art for games. So they would bring me. So within like a year, I went from having like 2 board games, which was like King of Tokyo and Betrayal at the House on Haunted Hill, to having
both
like,
good games, still good
dude, I
games.
went to like 40 games. Like I have so many games in the garage and in storage. My wife's like, get rid of some of these games. I have games I haven't even opened yet. Okay, but it's just like
I mean, but that's a rite of passage,
that's
right?
just what
So
happens, right, in this industry.
yeah,
So like I'll like occasionally like so what ends up happening on top of that is my friends and I grew up playing a lot of video games. So I was raised on like Game Boys and Nintendo and Ataris and TurboGrafx. But like my friends and I would always play first person shooters like Halo and all that. But one day while we were all playing, one of us was like, we should take a day to play tabletop games, like just so we can actually interact with each other in the same room instead of just being online all the time. And the online stuff came in because when we were in college and stuff, we're all away. Um,
right.
but so then we started playing board games, and now since I'm in that industry, I was able to bring to the table different games each time. And so I just show up with like a stack. I'd have like 6 or 7. I'm like,
Oh
here's
yeah,
the newest ones I
I have
got.
my bag too, and it's the whole thing.
Yeah,
You bring it around.
yeah, and then we
Oh
just pop
yeah,
them open and then start playing. And then some of them will be like, it's okay. Some of them will be like, this is fun. Save this one for next time too. So like those core like dice. You mentioned Dice Throne. Like I think that's a fun fucking game. And I've got the Marvel ones now, and I'm a Marvel guy. And I just kickstarted that
you're
X-Men
wearing a
one.
Spider-Man hoodie. I couldn't tell if you were a Marvel guy or not. So
Well, sometimes you learn live on the air. I also, on a quick side note, the cup you keep drinking out of looks like an old school Trapper Keeper.
my friend, the people that do that murder mystery
Yeah,
thing, Spellbound Studios on Instagram or Spellbound Creations, she sells them on there, so they're great.
it looks
Oh,
like
nice.
it looks like an old Trapper Keeper.
Custom made it.
We schedule the next game before we start playing. So we
Yeah,
played last Friday, I think it was. Yeah, and then before we started playing the games, we scheduled February's game because we have a bad habit of not scheduling. And what I've also done is I have a same group of friends. One guy is slowly coming around into playing D&D, but the rest of them all like D&D. So once a month we'll play. I'm trying to learn how to be a better DM. So what I was saying
sure.
is like you were saying, like focus in on that one thing you like. So like obviously I own a lot of D&D books here, but the thing I've been spending the most money on Kickstarters is like whenever I see like Griffin Saddlebags, we were both at that dinner. So I've got all of Griffin's books, right? Because I love the idea of being able to just open a book, find an item, just gift it to my friend in the middle of an adventure without stressing about it.
Oh, yeah.
There was a taverns book that kickstarted, which I thought was awesome. It was like a bunch of different taverns that already had like a bartender designed, a barmaid, and all the.
Oh, that's was that the
yeah.
local legends from Steamforged?
Yeah, I think it was Steamforged.
Yeah.
Where is it? Here it is. This one.
Oh no, it's not that one. But
It's
that's a good one
called
too. Oh yeah.
The Seeker's Guide to Twisted Taverns, but it's cool because it's got these like this is not the item I'm showing off for the show, by the way, but this is a whole tavern. Like you can just show this to your friends, and be like, this is what your tavern is that you're in. It's got like, and if you play it live, it came with a bunch of maps, right? So I've been spending my Kickstarter funds on stuff like that versus board games, and mainly because I know sometimes I can do a trade, but also like I own so many board games, and it's like I'm never gonna get to them all. But D&D is thing, that I want to try. I did pick up Old School Essentials at PAX.
Oh, always good.
Because Louis was like, Louis, right? That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm working on my own RPG. I mentioned that I'm working, and I brought it up before. I haven't really announced it, but I am working on a kids series in my world.
Oh, cool.
And I kind of want to do an RPG in that scenario, so younger kids can get into RPGs.
You should check out. We did one when I was working at the op, and we made the RPG for the Onward movie, and it's called Quest of Yore.
Quest of Yore.
So yeah, we got to work with Pixar on that, and it's very much like. Yeah, it's the game from the movie, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's got Bartley
Quest of Yore. Okay. I've been, I'll look that up. I was talking to Dave also because I saw his Badge Quest RPG, and I was like, I think that might be the rule set that I can use for this. So I'm still trying to get on a call with Dave soon, hopefully, and then we'll go from there. But I like RPGs. I like tabletop gaming. RPGs I just like because it forces you to use your imagination. Like if you're ever lucky enough to play a game of D&D with Andrew over here, Andrew comes up with some of the most bananas characters I've ever had in a campaign, and they're all fun. So
I haven't played that in a while. Actually, I need to. So I'm in another D&D game right now with two friends of mine, and I'm owing one of them an update sheet. Like we in game it's been 2 months or whatever, and our characters since the first game went from level 1 to level 3, but now he's like, okay, justify it for me. Like why have they gained two levels? So I have to write a whole paragraph of hey, here's what I've been doing in the 2 months between last game and then this upcoming that we're doing.
I think that's kind of fun stuff because it gets your brain. Now I do realize that not a lot of people want to do that. I've got 2 gamers in my group who I've asked for a backstory for months, and they still haven't given me a backstory. And I said, look, guys, your characters aren't going to advance forward or I can make something up for you, but otherwise I don't.
So when I DM, what I did for our last game was I made a whole questionnaire.
Okay.
Right? And I made it for my players, and I was like, hey, are there things that your character grew up doing, right? Like, oh, do you have some family members that are going on? Hold on, let me pull it up. 2 seconds here.
You send that to me later so I can use it.
Yeah. Give me a second. I haven't looked at it in a hot minute.
I remember that's what my current DM did for
Andrew, I'm getting a little bit of lag in your video.
I noticed that froze for a second. Now I'm on this lag.
It'll just catch up.
Eventually. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. Welcome to streaming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so you remember in the Ghost I forget the name of the Ghost Runner? Ghostbusters.
We're Ghostbusters essentially. Yeah.
I forget what the actual name was. But so in that I was playing a tiny mushroom, right?
You are a mushroom.
Yes. In this other game that I'm doing with the 2 other guys, I'm a giant mushroom this time.
You went the other way. Do you live longer this time?
I do. So I'm not a Dicaria or Dicaria anymore. I'm just a myconoid.
Okay.
Okay, so so the DM, he's basically set up like a fantasy New York City kind of deal, and I don't know what he has quite planned yet, but I had it in mind. It's okay, I'm a myconoid. I basically a country bumpkin kind of thing. I'm barely sentient kind of thing, where it's yeah, I talk, I have thoughts and everything. However, I'm more or less since I'm part of the spore mind or whatever that are the myconoids, I pretty much existed out in the forest this whole time. I don't have interactions with regular people in a city and stuff, so I don't have any clue about those kind of interactions. And then because it's also myconoid, they don't have eyes or a mouth to speak of, or really any of that kind of stuff. So one of the ways I communicate is by spores. Apparently, this is the thing that myconoids do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they spread out basically spores, and it's kind of like a form of telepathy from what I read.
Yeah.
It's like if you're in the vicinity of the spores, the voices in your head kind of deal. However, what that means is I cannot whisper or be subtle whatsoever. I'm already like a 9. I think I'm 9 or 12 feet. I forget how tall I am.
Oh, you're a giant. You're like a fucking Final Fantasy style mushroom.
Oh yeah. Like, so the way I equated it was like, if you remember the onion creature in Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm basically that, just as a mushroom, like just this really large, just mushroom man. So he was like, so why are you in the city? And I go, well, I was out in the forest, and my character found this like rotted box of human pornography, and I have it in my head now, just from like weird osmosis of like travelers and stuff. It's like, oh, this is a thing I can sell. Oh, I could be a merchant. Well, there's a
So you
city
went to
nearby. I should see if I could sell this because I'm a merchant now. Mind you, I can't sell. I have I think I have like a 2 in charisma.
You're a giant mushroom.
Yeah, and I purposely spec myself to not be a good merchant. But internally, I have a goal of like, I'm gonna try and do. I don't know what the end point of this is, but I'm gonna try and basically do the equivalent of like, trade a paperclip up to a house, kind of thing.
I like it.
Yeah, where you basically trade up, like, it'll be a paperclip to like an umbrella, to like, I don't know, a cat, to a wagon, to, and
Yeah, I want to
eventually
know how that goes for you.
Yeah,
Sure.
So like, Ross, you would like the Ghostbuster idea came from, it's a classic case of not everyone being able to play D&D. And our group, our Spelljammer group, was like 8, I think. So we always be 1 or 2 of us. Andrew and I both have
might have been
children.
more than 8. Might have been
so
10.
yeah, so like, I'd be like, I can't play. I'm busy with the kid. Andrew would be busy. So we'd be like, okay. So we came with an idea for when we can't play the main campaign, we will do a ghost busting 1-shot adventure that night. So whoever's there.
Real quick, before you get in, I would like to add, we are probably 2 of the more consistent people.
We are the ones with the kids are more consistent than the ones without.
That's funny.
So like, he's in that one, he's a small mushroom, and I'm basically a ghost busting kitten who rides on top of him, essentially. So
everything you're describing is wonderful and magical, and I love all of it.
But the Spelljammer one's fun because in that one he is ooze, and I am a cursed fae, and I carry him around in a jar sometimes. Like,
that's fun. So if you want your ooze to level up, my buddy Ed Burrell, he has a game company called Skeleton Key Games. He literally just came out with a whole 5e ooze book about like how to get classes for ooze and stuff like that, and everything there. By the way, he's an artist that now just does like RPG stuff too. But he was doing spell scrolls and things like that. But he has a whole ooze line now that he does. That's really neat. By the way, I found my questions for the character bits.
Yeah. So, you can share it or talk about it.
So it's a 5-question survey. You send it to your characters at the beginning of the game to help give you an idea of like what to do and everything there. So question 5 is 5 things about their character, right? Just like general things. So like somebody here, she's like, oh, loves cakes and pastries, likes trickstery things, likes festivals and celebrations, has never traveled across the sea, right? Like moved to a popular area and tries to hide in plain sight, but still is figuring out what they want out of life, right? So like general stuff there. Then 4 is 4 goals you want to share, right? So like, what are some goals? Like, so reunite with your family, remove this curse, do a thing, right? Like, and they're just making up stuff. And I'm like, great. Now I've got stuff that I can read.
Right. You got stuff to write.
So the third one is secrets, right? And it's like, what are secrets that are just general stuff like, oh, they did this thing, or they're scared of this stuff. It's like things that only they know, right? And then 2 is 2 secrets they know but haven't shared.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, it's there's little things there. So like for this one, she's like, oh, if she goes into the deep woods, she can hear the hag who cursed me whispering in my head, kind of thing, right? So it's like, oh, she hasn't shared that she
Sure.
hears voices, right? And then my favorite one is one secret they don't know about themselves or their past, right?
Oh, something that
And
gets revealed.
right, and then her big thing was that her little brother is not dead, but was also cursed by the hag, kind of thing, right? So now
Do
that
you
gives
give it
me
to them in
enough.
that reverse order?
I mean, you probably could, right? Like this was
Just
just a
curious.
general thing, but I liked it this way because it was like it gives me kind of enough to like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a lot of
I've got
information there.
what you're looking to, yeah, and it's just, I mean, these are all one line sentences here, right? Like it's
No,
not
no,
like
no,
it's
I
too
get that's
crazy,
cool. I have to.
but it gives them enough to like, great, now I know what you're looking for out of your character. One of
Yeah.
these things
I'm gonna
there,
use
and
that before the next one I do because I'm gonna do. I'm just starting. I was gonna set up a one shot with some artists who want to learn to play D&D. Um, because the current people I'm playing with, I had to literally be like, why is your character doing this? Like I've messaged them privately, right?
right,
Why is it important? And I'm like, why? Like, but these questions those are good questions. That's good. That's good.
yeah. And then one of the characters, she ended up writing a whole like 3 paragraph breakdown about like it was pretty much explaining the questions that she'd answered,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she
yeah.
put it into like more of like a word thing, which was great. But like one of my other buddies, like he literally was just like, does this thing, that, and I don't
Yep,
know, and
yep.
it was like generic shit. But I'm like, great, I still have enough where I can screw with you. I get what's going on, right, and everything there, which is nice. And then I pretty much gave them like a uh, here's an outline of the back history of the world you're in and all of that there. I gave them a map beforehand. I'm like, cool, where on the world did you live in? Know that you're all going to end up in the main capital. How did you get there? Right.
Do
And
you
so that's
make
all
your
I
own
did.
maps?
I love a good map creator
Yeah.
generator, right? Like that's my I love good random name generators too, right? Like so
Name generators are
I
fun. I was using what's this thing
yeah,
called? Dungeon Draft?
sure.
I don't know. That thing creates little worlds, but I haven't tried it for a map yet. But it's good for like areas. But also I love following patrons that make.
Oh, for sure, right? And like I love a good module too. I just so I built this during quarantine, right? And it's got a whole little bit to it. I had worked in a whole card game into the world too, and I
Oh, that'd
went
be
and bought a
fun.
bunch of the old Hecatomb cards from Wizard of the Coast, like way back in the day. There's hard plastic hex things, and there's a couple different websites you can go on and order dead games because they just got
Okay.
them all, and you can order them for like super cheap. So I ordered like probably 6 booster boxes and then a couple 2 player starters and some promo cards, and so I knew beforehand that one of the guys was going to be moving about session 10, so I didn't bust open the cards and do all that. But if I was to run this world again in that kind of campaign, they would start with little mini decks.
That's
And
cool.
essentially, the main story that I had worked on was that there was like this, uh, these dragons came and attacked the town or the main capital, and there's a big political struggle. And then a side story is that there's like the evil elves over in the far side, but they had ousted like their main general because they didn't want to be evil. And so like that general is working on getting a big army to take things over. The dragon guys are working on to take things over. But then there'd be like a big uh item that they're all kind of like working to try to like they want to get it to like rule the world. But part of that, I had a whole side plot where I was like, oh well, if they just play enough of this card game with different people, it'll unlock little map pieces that'll show where it is too. So I was like, oh, I got some options to get there, which would have been
You,
fun, but we didn't get
you
around
haven't
to it,
used it
right?
yet. I
So
got you. I thought
yeah,
about
but
building games into the campaign somehow, and I still haven't like found the secret sauce to
go
that.
look at go look up old card games. No joke, the game's already done. Like
That's true.
just just go get it. Like the hardest part is learning it, right? And like be like, okay, cool. I worked a little bit there, but also like I was telling the players too. I was like, hey, like if we play this game and we're just fucking around and doing the thing, but there's a couple different people online when I was looking up like what kind of card games do I want to do that literally make card games for role playing games that are
Yeah.
like a light Hearthstone or a light Gwent kind of thing,
Oh,
right?
really?
Oh yeah,
I was gonna
like
say
and it's
Gwent. Gwent is weird to me.
sure, but like there was somebody that made like Gwent light, and you can just buy all the cards off her site. And she's like, I use them for D&D stuff. This is what we do. And I'm just like, that's perfect. But I wanted to get a little crazy with it because I knew there were some warehouses that sell card games.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of fun stuff, right? So, but at the same time, like, it's why I like the Epic Encounter stuff from Steamforge so much. Because like, hey, like there were some times where I'm like, I don't really feel like doing too heavy into the story, but we're in the woods. So I'm going to go and grab the Goblin Encounter from Epic Encounters and throw that down. And now we're just going to go fight some goblins in the woods. And then I can just make those goblins remnants of the evil general. And then he'll give them a couple things there and do that. And it's like, okay, great. And
so I like, I talked about 1985's Jeremiah had the orc system, right?
Yep.
They didn't, I don't, there's something happening with that. I think that there's some licensing issues, but I have those still. And every time I'm like, what do I do here? Like, I've shown this on the show before, but basically, like, if you just pull like 3 cards at random, and they have like the orc system, they call it. So
and it shows what it all. It's really clever.
Yeah. So this literally says, an immense jungle ravine blocks your way. A rickety cable car is the only way across. And then, is the cable car reliable? Is what is waiting on the other side? A group of cannibals offers to guide you through the jungle. They have one condition. What is the condition? Do they only eat people under special circumstances? You find some strange fruit trees. The fruits grant you incredible power, but at a cost. What are the side effects? Are the plants actually occurring? That's the last one. So, like, you can write a whole thing right there with those 3 cards with no prompts. So,
well, and that's kind of the fun of it, right? Where you're like, well, like with this D&D campaign that I ended up writing, like I just put on some freaking Carpenter Brett and some Deep Synth, and I was like, okay, I want to like make a D&D game, and I want to use miniatures. That was my main thing. I was like, I don't want to play online.
Yeah,
we all played a million games online during quarantine, but I'm like, it became work for me, right? And having worked in games and working on games, I don't want to play games in the same work. Right. I needed the preparation. I like miniatures. I like those things, and so building that whole world, like I wouldn't like was shopping for the right dragon to like fit this right thing there, or I found like an orc that had a skull because I wanted to have them pick up a talking skull to have them lead to a temple and do a whole thing and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, I've got a whole box of stupid stuff now that I don't need, like wizards and things. I'm like, well, I'll paint them up eventually, but like,
they'll come into play at some point.
They'll 100% look at use, right? So
I'm waiting to use my Gen Con. There was the what's it called? Stat trackers. It's like a whole Dungeon Master screen with like little stats you can hang, so you can like keep track of all your characters and your monsters, and then stuff hangs over the front, so your players can see all the stuff. And it was like $50 at Gen Con last year or the year before, and I'm like, but then I've not been able to run a tabletop game in person D&D. So like, if I told you my friends are trying to do a in-person meeting once a month, I said when we play at my house, we're playing D&D. Like that's the game, like so.
Well, games take like I play Twilight Imperium pretty often, right? And like that takes you got to set up time. You got to do it. Like we're playing a game out right now that we're gonna play in March, and it's like, but Twilight Imperium takes 8 hours. So like that's just we know we're gonna be playing all day. So yeah.
Twilight Imperium, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen my friends play that. That game looks epically long.
It is, but in a really good way. Like it's board games, it's space galactic opera, right? Essentially, so for those that don't know, right?
4X board game, isn't it?
It is the definition of 4X.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, it looks interesting to me. That kind of thing. I think I told Alan this before. I think off stream or anything like that. But like those kind of games, I like as a computer game. When it's a board game, it's like the least interesting thing to me. I think mainly because it's like, oh god, all this stuff that's usually handled on the back end. Now I have to crunch it myself.
You have to do it. Yeah, exactly.
So like I will 100% like evangelize Twilight Imperium. Like it is, if you think you like 4X games and RTSs and stuff like that, do it at least once. It is my favorite game. And I have a tattoo of my favorite homeworld alien thing on my shoulder. Right, like you
are not the first I ever heard evangelize it.
Yeah, there's so many factions that are doing things. There's so much going on, and the new 4th edition is so good. And playing with the expansion, it adds more, but it makes the game go faster. I think because it
okay.
adds more thematic stuff to it. So because like your empire building, you're negotiating, and there's drama, but the whole point of the game is to get points because it's still a board game, and to win a board game, you got to get the most points, right?
Right.
And in this game, you can totally go down a rabbit hole of like building your tech tree and taking these planets and doing this whole like empire expansion over here. But oh shit, you forgot to spend 10 resources on this thing and pass that political card, and then you didn't get points,
You're
and all of a
screwed.
sudden
Yeah.
someone jumps up 3 points in one turn, and you're like, oh, no, how come I didn't think that? And it's because you got to remember points from the game, right? So it's but at the same time, you're exploring planets and you get cool little things like that. If you're playing with a good group that at the beginning has understood we are in this all day, so no one leaves halfway through. That's just how it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
We are all friends here, so there's no
Whatever
hidden-
happens. Yeah.
right. And you've got to be like, hey, if there's a problem, let's talk it out right now, right? There's no hidden stuff. Also, what's cool with Twilight Imperium is there are legit rules about deals, right? So you can go back on deals, but that's oh, hey, I will totally move my guys off that tile next turn. Yeah, no problem, right? We've discussed it. I said I'd do it. Right? But now there's cards that I can give you. Hey, here's a ceasefire. Here's a point. Here's a thing, right? Like, and that's a trade that we've made that now I have to do because we've traded a thing and done that. I have to go do what I've said I was going to do. And everybody on the table is like, yeah, you said you were, but like, there's things where there's a lot of Cold War, like, oh, I'm building up your guys on this side, but we're buddies. So like, I'm totally not going to betray you, but also like, I got to get points to win the game. You know how it is. So now we got to go and do that. And so it gets like, all the factions are uniquely different, right?
Yeah.
Like they've all got, like, there's the trading ones and there's the defense ones. And there's the ones that when they, like in the expansion, they introduced the kaiju that literally come from another dimension.
Oh my goodness.
So like, so when they destroy your ships, they actually eat them so that you lose your plastic pieces, and then they can spend those plastic pieces to make their own ships, right? And then there's the ghosts that like have wormholes everywhere and they can shoot around and do these things. Or there's the humans where it's just a shitload of humans, because that's what humans do in sci-fi stuff, is we just have a lot of humans.
Right.
You know?
Like, we're like ants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be curious to try it. I would have to have someone, not my current like local friends and stuff. They would not be interested in it whatsoever. I've told Alan this before, but like I have had immense trouble just getting them to play Cosmic Encounter, which is like one of my
I
favorites.
love Cosmic Encounter.
I know,
man.
it's a really good game, but like, yeah, all of them have pretty much bounced off it. It's kind of like and I think it's more because like, you know, this with the game, like you kind of have to play it a few times to understand, like, okay, like these are the rules, and now I can break the rules and kind of play with it as is. And we just haven't done it enough where they've grokked it and been like, oh yeah, I can now do this. I know what I can do regarding this kind of stuff. And
Right.
yeah, and they've all kind of acknowledged that, saying like, oh, like I can see where it's going, but I don't understand it fully where I can like really do a lot with this. It's like, that's fair, dude.
Oh yeah.
And then like, yeah, we'd rather just play a game that we can.
I'm just not good at games like that. It's like Scythe, you know, like, or I heard the other one, but it's like you were saying, you make one wrong move and you're like, well, I'm not gonna win this.
Oh sure,
know?
but like
I think though you can come back from like near death.
yeah, we've been playing a lot of Flamecraft right now, right? And Flamecraft's super fun. And if you guys don't know that, that's also a very art-driven game.
I don't know that one.
Cool. So like, Flamecraft was inspired because the artist they picked had done a cutesy dragon photo of this witch at a cafe who was getting a creme brulee from a dragon who was doing a whole thing. And then Peter Vaughn and Manny Vega essentially were like, oh, let's make this into what would this game look like? So they ended up making a whole board game where your job is to get dragons jobs in a fantasy town, right? So you essentially go to different shops and you help dragons get jobs, and then you get resources based on those different towns or different shops, and then you spend those on trade goods.
Oh, I've seen this.
Mm-hmm.
Very cute looking.
Very cute, and the game is clever and it makes you feel smart. So
Okay. Flamecraft. That's cute.
yeah, it's fun. It's very good. Yeah, Cardboard Alchemy's been doing some good stuff lately. So
Nice.
Cool. All right. Well, we're a little bit past the hour mark. So we can do the
fair enough.
last part of the.
Sure.
I mean, I feel like we could talk about games forever, which is
Oh yeah.
we'll just have to have you back on.
Sure.
Hold on.
And thanks for all your, you gave us a lot of good advice on stuff, so I'm definitely gonna utilize a lot of that. But let's do the last part before we close out, which I don't know if you want to go first, Ross, or Andrew, if you want to go first.
I'll go first.
Sure.
I'm right now in the middle of like deadlines and stuff, so I haven't got a chance to see or do much of anything, unfortunately.
No worries.
But I did make this pencil tray recently out of some scrap zebra wood that my brother left behind from Christmas, and I had like some extra.
Mine wouldn't. If I made a pencil tray, it would not look that good.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is
and it definitely would not be made out of wood.
Well, you should see the first couple ones that I did much like a few months ago. They were much more jankier, but I've kind of figured it out now. But yeah, no, I just made this up. I had the scrap piece of zebra wood lying around, which is a very nice and very expensive piece of wood. The board that he got was like, I want to say it was like maybe 14 inches wide and maybe like 3 feet high, and that was like $86.
Damn.
To buy. Yeah, it's an import wood.
Gotcha.
But it's very beautiful. It's stained. You apply like oil finish to it, and it not stains, but it like finishes very beautifully. It's gets this like really neat like flame pattern to it going on. But yeah, no, I have a few of these like kind of different like woodworking pencil trays that I've made sitting around the house and stuff. Like I had my I don't think I've ever shared it, like my pencil box that I have as like my everyday carry.
No.
That's like just walnut and maple put together, but it has like some magnetic clasps on it, so the box top is held on with magnets that are like nice tiny magnets and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's a few things. It's basically like if I'm not making like picture frames, I usually do like weird little woodwork projects like that around the house.
Cool.
It's fun to be crafty, man. I'm not that crafty. Well, the thing I got is I saw this back in Thanksgiving. This artist posted on Instagram. Her name is, I don't know her last name, but her name is Caroline. And on Instagram, she goes by A House of Wonders. And she makes cool little things like this.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
Right? And so you can see on the side, it's just like, it's all like handmade.
Yeah, it's just a gigantic shadow box. I like that.
Yeah, it's just a gigantic shadow box. But I saw this on Instagram. And so she made this one individual for me, But I was just like, yes, I'm going to get one of these. They're little
hard to see on the webcam. Are they fish or?
No, they're little spaceships.
Oh, spaceships. Okay.
Let me get my head out of the way so maybe it'll focus on it a little bit more.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, I can see it now.
And if you go look at A House of Wonders, she's got like ghosts and spaceships, and a lot of it's like there's a cool one where it's like you're going into a forest and stuff. So there's bigger shadow boxes you can get from her.
Oh, nice.
It's like a whole website of this. I'm just like, I don't know how long this stuff takes, but it's pretty impressive. So I'll give a shout out to an artist.
Crappy things. Oh, okay.
It could be anything, but yes. Apparently, craft is what we're doing. This wrap. I like that you have a whole bin, a little display cabinet full of minis.
I figured with the Spider-Man hoodie you got, I should show off. So this is the miniature I most painted recently. Was a.
Oh yeah, is that a Marvel Clicks?
Yeah, it's a Marvel Crisis Protocol miniature. So
that's a good mini, man.
Yeah. So this is from the new core box, the Earth Mightiest Heroes, and it's got the Avengers and a bunch of that stuff there. So I painted this guy up, which is pretty fun.
Awesome.
I am behind on painting minis, man.
40 millimeter. Yeah, it's super fun. So I gave him the Insomniac white on the front, right, and the whole back there. So which is cool. But yeah, it's a good. I mean, they're a good size, right? So which is fun. So
nice.
I gotta paint I got this from Jake at San Diego. This little Nightcrawler.
Oh yeah, that's from Marvel United.
Yeah, from United. And the display they have at San Diego is amazing because they have so many of these painted. Right, I'm just like, can I just buy one of these? Like,
Oh, you want to paint it yourself?
I know
You
I'm
gotta
not
paint
that
it
good,
yourself.
but Jake was him and Rick. They do
Rick.
the
Yep.
painting demo. So I messaged him real quick to say, hey, you got any Nightcrawlers in that mix? Because I'll take one of those. But all right, so now we're at an hour and a half, so we should cut it because otherwise it's going to go way too long.
Fair enough.
But thanks, Ross, for being on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Literally, man, you get the advice you gave on this was solid gold. So I literally have 2 pages of notes here in my notebook.
Oh, shoot.
Nice. I definitely wrote it all down. And I'll probably bother you for advice on some things at some point. But
you always can.
Cool,
and
man. I appreciate
as
that.
a general shout out to if anybody has any questions and they're listening, find me on LinkedIn, find me on Facebook, hit me up. Happy to chat. So, and I'll be at plenty of shows this year. So I'll be at Gamma, I'll be at Adepticon, I'll be at Gen Con, I'll be at PAX Unplugged. I'll probably be at Big Bad Con too if I can squeeze it in. And I'll be around. And if you're Comic-Con San Diego, come to that too. Super good times. So.
Oh yeah, I'll see you at San Diego for sure. Yeah. Also, yeah. Thanks for always letting us into those events because I network the heck out of myself at those things.
Good. Yeah, we're actually that whole party's getting a lot bigger. I have to book out the whole brewery this year. So
it's not going to be Ballast Point this year.
It's not going to be Ballast Point.
Oh,
but
okay.
we're just going to get the whole
thing. That's cool. Yeah. You know what's nice about that is like we leave the show and we literally just take a nice walk up. I don't know how some people. I think Daryl takes an Uber because he doesn't like walking. But I'm just like, I'm gonna walk, man. It's a nice 15-minute walk,
Yeah, I had the Uber last year because my panel finished at 6:15.
Yeah, well, you're the host.
And the party started at 7, and I was like, oh shit,
I still remember when so I got invited there in what was this 2022 was the first time I went to that event with you, and I literally was telling Miles about Robbie from Crit Roll. I was just like, I've been watching the new season of Crit Roll. I really love this guy, Robbie. His character's amazing. I really enjoy the way he plays the game because he plays it. He's a new player who's never really played D&D. So you get that excitement of being a player, and I could see it on the guy's face. And as I'm talking about Robbie, he literally is walking in, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" I was just talking about you. And so I, kind of became. I wouldn't say we're chummy, but we're friendly. And he was there last year too, and I was just like, "Hey man, I don't think you remember me, but I'm just gonna say hi," And he's a super nice guy. So
super nice guy. Yeah,
I was trying to be like, do you need a board game guy? Do you need an artist? I got you, bro.
Yeah.
Someday, you never know. But you had a lot of people from the show there last year, and I was like, I am not jumping in the middle of this circle. I was just like,
it's
nice
really
to meet
cool
you.
How that party's evolved. So it used to just be like all my friends when they were in town or on panels.
Yeah,
I'll book out the kettle room at Ballast Point, and then it's grown from like, oh yeah, I'll invite more industry folk, and then it was, oh yeah, I'll invite more industry folk, and then the last couple of years I'm like, oh, I need to legitly make this like an invitation thing and do this.
Yeah, I mean it's cool, man, because also Ballast Point is it's one of my favorite spots to visit there because the fish tacos are amazing, and when I used to drink, their beer's pretty good.
I mean, being a sober guy too, it's really nice because they've got so many good pineapple and ginger options.
Yep,
that are really good.
The bartender's like, I got non-alcoholic options. I'm like, what? Let's go.
Oh, San Diego with Athletic Brewing has been doing all this really cool stuff and everything there. So it's been really nice. I was a little worried industry wise, I'm 3.5 years now, right? So it's kind of how's it all going to be? But it's it's been just fine,
Yeah,
so.
I've been about almost a year and a half now, and I thought it would be hard because I was hanging out with my friends at these events, and most of them drink. But it's been fine. Most places, I'm just like, can I just get a soda, water, and lime? And yeah, bro, we got you. But Ballast Point was like, I'll make you something nice. And I was just
you want this ginger, whatever this is.
I forgot what it was called. It was good.
Oh, yeah. The worst part is I'm drinking it, and I'm like, I wish it was 2 p.m. on a Saturday, and I was at the beach right now. This is exactly what I want to have as I'm walking down the sand.
What was that? And then my fish taco showed up, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, well, it's welcome to San Diego, right? There you go, right?
Well, I was just because Jake and I, we were hanging out in the back with Jake, and I can't remember the other guy that came by to talk to us briefly, but I just remember that's how Jake has been one of these guys that's on a quick segue before I call this. But Jake was a guy that would always stop by my booth and buy something from me or recommend me to other publishers and other introduce me to industry folk, right? Oh, like I didn't really know him really well until like I've gotten to know him over like the year or so, because at San Diego last year when we were hanging out at Ballast Point, like Jake happened to be there. So I spent a bulk of my time just talking to him, hanging out with him, getting to know him a little better. And he'll consistently tell. I made the mistake of telling him a story about how my cousins and I went drinking when in our 20s at this bar in Texas, and everyone thought I was the guitarist from Sum 41.
Oh my gosh, are you? That's amazing.
I can't tell you guys that. I'm not on tour right now, but in my 20s, I definitely look like this guy. And I showed him a photo, right? Which I'll show you later. But Jake now tells everybody, he does two things. One is he tells everybody how I'm always on tour, that's why I'm busy. And the other thing he does is he tells everybody he's my business manager. So he'll be like, as Allen's business manager. And I'd be like, people are going to start thinking you're my legit business manager. Because he was hanging around my booth saying that. But, so it's kind of cool because I got to know he's a cool dude. And I really do like hanging out with him. So it's more fun than like, he's not just a random customer anymore, a random person I see at the shows, right? So it's kind of cool. Same for you, man. It's been fun, like getting to know you and hanging out with you guys. So
I agree.
But let's I will, if anyone wants to follow up with you, I'll let them know where to catch you. Maybe we can have you back on. We can talk more board games at some point.
Sure.
But otherwise, I appreciate you being on. I know we went a little longer than expected, but I think it was a good talk. So
I agree.
Cool. And I'm gonna take us offline. Oh, our next guest is Lauren Panapinto. We'll be recording with her next week, basically. That'll be part of the what I was talking about before. We're gonna do a couple series on different art directors and different industries. Yep. Try to get.
She'll be our first for that, and then
she'll be our first. Yes.
Yep.
And I'm hoping to get somebody from the board game side and maybe somebody from maybe the video game side. So it'll be kind of interesting to get different takes. And maybe Ross knows someone. I'll bother him later.
I might. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Let me take us offline. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Have a good night.